You're part of this group called the Cuban Brothers, and you've become this stage name called Miguel.
Miguelito here.
I feel like you could do everything.
I've been lucky enough to make a living doing what I love. But, you know, the nice thing is that to be accepted by Cubans, and they sort of get it. It's like everyone knows a Miguel, this guy who sort of fancies himself. You know, you don't know if he's gay, you don't know if he's straight, but you just know he's into it. I got arrested with Ryan Dunn from Jackass, rest in peace. The copper, God bless him, he put his gloves on and climbed up the pole and pistol whipped me down. It was a beauty.
On the Gumball Rally, I met so many incredible individuals, including my next podcast guest. Michael Keat is a breakdancer, performer, DJ, and one of the members of the Cuban Brothers. He actually goes by the alias, the Cuban individual, Miguel Montevani. He's a really cool guy, very funny, got bundles of energy, and I enjoyed this podcast episode with him.
Right, welcome back to my podcast, Steve Sully Study. Listen, loads of my podcasts recently have been many people that I met over the Gumball Rally, and the guy I've been on his case for such a long time now, for the last few weeks, ever since I got back from the Gumball Rally, is this gentleman from the Cuban Brothers, Michael Keat. So thank you very much, sir, for your time, and I'm looking forward to this podcast episode.
Pleasure, Steve, pleasure. It's nice to be here, and I appreciate your temerity in getting this one away, because it's been, fairly difficult to get a hold of properly. It's a busy time, but yeah, man, you're the proverbial dog with a stick, and I salute you.
I tell you what, I always say the same thing to friend, family, or anyone ask me about the podcast. They say, how'd you get like quite a lot of good, high-profile people on the podcast? And so I got a very, very simple strategy. I completely persist until I get one or two answers. They either say yes or they tell me to fuck off. And either way, for me, that's a success, because then I can move on.
Yeah, good man. I commend you on that on that philosophy, and I think it's working for you. So good stuff, mate.
It certainly is. Now, look, without blowing smoke at your backside, I've got to be honest, mate. Every time I spoke to you, every time I watched you perform, mate, you got so much like energy, positivity oozing from you. It's almost like it feels like a natural kind of thing. It probably isn't. You probably work really hard at it, but you just do it so easily. And you're just like a comedian, a showman, a performer, an MC, a singer, a body popper, a break dancer. I mean, this stuff that I feel like you could do everything. But I tell you what, my respect for you went up another level just today. I tell you why. David Brent, Life on the Road, you featured in that, right?
Yeah.
I am a massive, massive, massive David Brent fan. And when I saw that you was a part of that, I was like, mate, this is brilliant. So, like, if I can start with that then, David Brent, Life on the Road, how'd you get that part in that particular movie?
Yeah, I got a call from David's the casting, and just said, would you like to come in? We thought you'd be good for this. And I did, and came in, and I was, and got it. And then, but it's the very first scene in the movie, and it got cut. And so effectively, I got the part, and we did the scene, and the scene's maybe about, 6-7 minutes long, and it's not really being used. So I have the kudos of being in the film, but it got cut. So that's the story with that.
Well, listen, I mean, testament to the fact that you're you are where you are. You're a very successful man. You're touring the world. You're doing your thing, and I think it's a life lesson as well. Like even when you're pursuing greatness, which you are, there's obviously going to be certain elements in your life that may not always go to plan. But look, even to meet Ricky Gervais, I mean, I've got a wish list. I've got a goals list for my podcast, and he's definitely on there. To be honest, it would be more so David Brent I would like to interview than Ricky Gervais. I mean, when I started watching The Office many years back, I didn't really understand it. I was only a little boy, and my dad was watching it, and he was cracking up, and I was watching the screen thinking, I don't really understand this. Many years later, I revisited it, and oh my God, my whole entire... I would say the back half of my personality has been built up on that particular character. He is so layered, so funny, and I think it's timeless. I think in 30 years from now, we're still going to find it funny.
Yeah, I think so. And Ricky, of course, he's a legend. I think when I used to work with Sasha Baron Cohen, like we did a few things together at the same time when he had the 11 o'clock show, and Ricky was the stand-up on that. And I always thought that his comedy back then, we're going back 20 years ago, maybe no longer, going 22 years ago. I always thought his comedy was a little bit mean-spirited then. So I wasn't really feeling it, just being perfectly frank with you. And then he just basically got better as far as I'm concerned. And so, you know, his stand-up now is extraordinary and incredibly thought-provoking, as well as being funny. But yeah, I didn't think much of him initially, and now he's a force to be reckoned with, you know, across the board. Yeah, man, it's all good. And as you say, I've been lucky enough to be able to make a living doing what I love. I feel very privileged, you know, in that sense that I've been able to be an entertainer, you know, an MC, a dancer, whatever it is, these things that I do, and make a living from it. It's been fantastic, and I'm fairly lucky, I think.
Well, luck is, you know, when opportunity meets preparation.
That's right. I was going to say that, but it's true. It says that there's a certain amount of cats who, you know, there's also a few cats who are genuinely lucky. I might not be one of them, but you know, I've seen some cats who have a fucking bit. My eyebrow touches the back of my neck when I've seen how much fucking money they've made, and how much they've been able to achieve on very little talent. And that's not Gervais, not at all. But there's been quite a few people I've seen in the public eye where I've been like that. Really? Fucking hell. I love it.
So, quite naturally, I want to talk about the Cuban Brothers. I want to talk about, I'm trying to pronounce this right, let's call it alienness, or, sorry, stage name, I'll say that word better. Miguel Mantovani.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Now, before we talk about, you know, the stage name and obviously being this character, I was quite shocked to see, obviously I got to speak to you when we was in the Gumball rally, but you're obviously from Edinburgh, Scotland, but you were living between the ages of 4 to 8, then 15 to 18, New Zealand. Yeah. Which, that seems a little bit odd to me. So tell me a bit more about your upbringing.
I was brought up in Edinburgh, and then I was an illegitimate child. You know, I lived with my mum and my grandparents. My mum was a hairdresser, and then a lovely big Kiwi gentleman, very camp, came across, and he met my mum and effectively adopted me. You know, and we all went back to New Zealand, like literally a year later, and I had sort of formative years of an upbringing there, which was fantastic. And then came back to the UK when I was 6. And got not the shit beaten out of me, but certainly a hard time. I had long blonde curly hair, wee blue eyes, and spoke like this. Oh, hey, good day, nice to meet you. My name's Mike. And so I had to assimilate pretty quickly. They gave me some, you know, good tools for growing up. You know, it's the kind of thing where you can, you know, I can separate the wheat from the chaff. You know, you learn to cement relationships quickly. It's very rarely negative, but I can spot it if it is. It's not for everybody, I don't think. I've been at sort of 12 schools in my life. It's good, and it was good. I went back when I was 15. I was doing some stuff at 15 years old. You know, I was traveling the length and breadth of New Zealand with 2 record boxes, hitching, and I hitched the length and breadth of the country playing clubs, some clubs with little ones that were there, and pubs and parties. I mean, I was almost 16, to be honest. I was basically 16, I'd say. And I did all that, and I ended up starting a club in New Zealand called the Naked Angel. It was in Wellington, in the capital. The Naked Angel was sort of one of the first sort of house music rave clubs. I mean, it's, you know, this is 1990. New Zealand were a little bit behind, although there were some fantastic DJs who are still going, who were my heroes when I was there. So for a reasonably young guy, I was, you know, taking care of some quite serious business when it came to dance music around that time. So it was certainly all a learning curve and very fun.
So, like, I have interviewed a lot of business people, and I've interviewed a lot of athletes, and a lot of them have been boxers. And the reason why is because I boxed myself, Michael. I've had 16 fights. Last fight was back in March, and I like to get in the headspace of an athlete, because I think that, you know, their winner's mindset can transfer into their business life or their social life or their family's life. I think there's a lot of complementary traits that you can use in life. But with your journey, I've not really come across anyone that has had this kind of business model, because you're from Edinburgh. You've obviously got this accent. You've developed this. You're part of this group called the Cuban Brothers, and you've become this stage name called Miguel. And it's almost like, what? How did you come up with that kind of strategy? Like, it's just a really, really odd one, but you've executed it really well.
What happened was I came back from New Zealand when I was 18 because I wanted to DJ and I wanted to, you know, I'd had some success there, but I knew that, you know, and at that time, if you wanted to be, you know, more successful, you needed to be in Europe, as far as I was concerned. And we're so far away in New Zealand, however fantastic it is, and it is fantastic, you know, it's a wonderful country, and some of my favorite people. In fact, probably 98% of my favorite people are in New Zealand. But I came back and I was only in Edinburgh. I came back and stayed with my granny and stuff, and I was only there for like 2 months. And I said, you know, this is not really for me. And we jumped ship. One of my pals, one of my old schoolmates from Pennycook, we went to live in Palma in Mallorca when I was 19, just turned 19. And we went and worked, and we DJ'd out there. We DJ'd at BCM. And we DJ'd, I DJ'd at a place called La Luna in Palma, right, which was a Spanish club. So I would have been maybe certainly one of the only young non-Spanish speaking DJs playing in there. That was a more of an older thing. And it was in Palma, not so much in Magaluf, which was the BCM factor, which was more nuts. And so basically that was, I think that time spending the 2 years there, or a year and a half or whatever it was similar to that. You know, I think that was where the character Miguelito was born. And when I was going out to DJ at night, there was a wee Spanish guy who was the hotel animator. Must have been his mid-50s, and he had this big fucking womb broom, a big cockbuster mustache. I'm sure it was Pedro. So I used to buy him a San Miguel and chat away to him. And what I loved about him so much, he was so deliciously kind of substandard. He was very warm, but just fairly shit. Yeah, and but everyone loved him. But, you know, so he used to do this disco, and you know, and he'd have this. He was only about 5'1", 5'2", really sort of diminutive guy, and he'd come and do the disco. So I'd have my record box. I'm out to work and having a wee drink and just watching him doing his disco in the hotel. Okay, kids, next time, probably for you. Okay, it's going to be your favorite one now. Is my favorite. Is your favorite. Let's go. We feel Saturday night. And he used to MC. And he used to run from behind the console. And it was fucking far. Like, he did 15 seconds of running to the console. And then he forgot that he didn't press play. So he's like that. So going back to press play on the CD player or whatever it was. We're talking 93. I'm pretty sure it was CDs then. Or it might have actually been a belt drive turntable before he'd have to run back and start ding, 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 and start doing the set. And I was pissing myself. I was just like, this is fucking brilliant. It was.
Mate, it's like a Spanish David Brent.
It was in some ways, but like a mixture of a Spanish David Brent and say Barry Chuckle. Yeah, okay. The Chuckle Brother. Yeah, that was a combination. He was like that. He was like a Spanish Barry Chuckle, David Brent sort of combination, and effectively, I'm pretty sure I didn't realize it then, but it was kind of not based on, but that was the impetus for it. Was this character, wee Pedro? Yeah, it came from that really. It came from living in Mallorca at that time, and then coming back to the UK. I obviously wanted to DJ. I wanted to represent also the other stuff that I did, and so I decided that this was a good way to sort of earn a crust and B, have some fun,
Yeah. What's really impressive is just how you amalgamate all of it together. I mean, I've listed it earlier, but like when I was see you on stage, like doing the accent, funny, body popping, breakdancing, singing, doing the MC, and you do it so smoothly, mate. You really, really do. And you're so convincing. Like, people must come over to you and say, like, talk to you as Miguel, and then obviously you're talking
all
as
the time.
It was like me. I come over and I was like, hang on a minute, you're from Scotland.
Yeah. You know, of course. I mean, that's lovely. But I should hope so. You know, after 24 years, you want to. I'd be fucking healing myself in the balls if I wasn't, if I wasn't convincing, because I've been doing it for a long time. And to see, I worked in Cuba a lot, and spent a lot of time. And so the habaneros and outside as well. We did a lot of stuff in Camagüey, Pinar del Rio, all over. They all speak to me rapid Spanish, thinking that I'm one of the countrymen, and I can pick it up. And I know, but I have to say, lo siento, mi español is, poquito, because I'm not fluent, and which is slightly embarrassing. I'm good enough to get away conversationally, but I'm not fluent. And but you know, the nice thing is that to be accepted by Cubans and to be actually, they sort of extol us. You know, like it's that kind of thing where they sort of get it. It's like there's never been a question mark over if we were misrepresenting the culture. They understand as performers, as dancers, that we're up and we're at it. And they understand as a comic that, as a character, is that I'm playing this. Everyone knows a Miguel, this guy who sort of fancies himself, and he sort of, is a little bit, you don't know if he's gay, you don't know if he's straight, you don't know if what he's in, but you just know he's into it, and that's what I wanted it to be. I wanted it, the whole thing that I gave Miguelito. I hate to talk about myself in third person. I don't want to sound like a knob, but
no, you don't. Yeah, it's good.
I gave the character a full history. It was basically that he'd been involved. He got a daytime TV show in Cuba, one of the first ones in the mid '80s, and then this popularity. He'd been a bit of a swordsmith, and he got invited to be involved in some adult film activity, and also he'd been one of the favorite. The show had been syndicated to Colombia and Paraguay and Uruguay and stuff like that, and so he'd become a favorite, entertainer of the cartels. And so that the whole thing was that, during the 80s and that I was being flown out to do shows for them at the various villas and stuff like that. And I've been involved in the porn industry. But what had happened was that one of the starlets in one of the films had ended up being the daughter of the Cuban Minister of Agriculture. So I had two choices. One was prison, or the other one was exile. And so that was the reason that I came to Europe in the early 90s, was I didn't really have a choice. And so that was that was the whole history that I'd given Miguel, and the fact that he was, just very brazen and very, it's like that kind of thing. Like, that's what I learned about Latin culture from living there and then spending so much time in Cuba. That was what I like about it, is that there are less things are left to the imagination. Like, if someone's feeling something, they'll fucking tell you about it. And it's brilliant like that. And I'm the same. That's one of the things that I take from it. I was already like that, but I think it's good. It's like it's that kind of thing where, with that kind of attitude, that's why a party can sort of, literally you've got 5 people there. The next thing there's some music. 5 minutes later there's some drink. Literally 3 minutes later there's your party, and that party can go on. And that happened to me so many times in Cuba, and it's been something that I've always extolled, and something that I was into. And so that was kind of the reason, that the way that it came around. And so and we were lucky. It was quite meteoric, Steve, in the sense of I started in this little bar. I'd been DJing in other places, but I started doing the Cubans thing, particularly in this jazz cellar bar called the Cellar Bar Number 1, and it's in Edinburgh, and it's on Chamber Street, just opposite the Scottish National Museum, and it's a proper jazz bar. It's a basement, probably about 140 cap, great wee place. And I started doing shows there on a Tuesday night with my DJ, and I had percussion in it, and really the first night was busy. Nice and busy, and then the next Tuesday it was sold out. And the next Tuesday it was sold out, and it just fucking, you know, it went from taking 300 quid on a Tuesday night to taking, you know, $3,000 plus on a Tuesday night. And it was students, jazz aficionados, and club people, because I was involved in clubs. I promoted other clubs. That everyone's like, Mike's doing this new thing. He's doing this, you know, this Miguel thing, the Cubans thing. And so everyone used to come and support me on a Tuesday, because we all sort of, you know, we all knew each other. We all promoted nights or DJ nights. And so, yeah, and that was it, man. It was really meteoric. And from that, we just got booked for other stuff. And literally within 3 months, I had a residency in Amsterdam, at the Matzo Club in Amsterdam. And I had a residency in Ibiza. We were out doing Manumission with Mike and Claire, and just invites everywhere. I was at the Kaufleuten in Zurich, and we were out in New York playing on Randall Island, and at the first Box, you know, the Box nightclub.
Yeah. It's just round the corner from here.
Is it? Right.
Yeah,
so the first one in New York, like we were one of the first acts at the Box in New York, and and so just and playing, you know, we just had loads of these little sort of mad little residencies, and of course in London as well, at the top of London. Yeah. And then the Empire Rooms, the Embassy Room, which is now the big Spearmint Rhino on. Right. But that was a beautiful old. That was one of the last of the music hall venues with a flocked wallpaper and the full. Into the ladies' room, they had a full makeup room, which was like, you know, literally 40 meters by 40 meters, and all the sort of gilded mirrors and everything. Amazing venues. And this was around 1999. 98, 99, and 2000 was when we were all. I mean, we've been lucky enough to be all over the place all the time, but it was a real sort of. It was really surprising and very exciting for me at that age. I must have been 22 to be playing a character who was 52, and I'm making myself up to look like this you know, old. We're not old, but mature Cuban guy, this mature Cuban entertainer. And because I think that the sort of the banter and the way that I used the humor was always warm, you know what I mean? The joke was always on me or on one of my bandmates. Rather, It was never mean, you know what I mean? It was never, you know. I would take the piss, but it was never mean spirited. It was always done in a warm fashion, you know. So rather than make someone feel uncomfortable, you know, I could do a gag about them, but effectively they're getting the kudos of me talking about them in a warm way. So it's kind of, do you know what I mean? It was that kind of thing. Yeah. You know, like Irvin Welsh, who I'm friends with now, you know, Irvin was one of the first guys to come down to the Cellar Bar #1. And obviously I did some great stories about Irvin and that. And although I knew him, we'd met before because we were both Hibs fans, and you know, we'd both been at Easter Road at the same time. But it was like, you know, it was that kind of thing during that time where some, you know, reasonably successful luminaries would come to the show, and I'd fucking, you know, I'd take the piss, but in a nice way. You know, it was always, you know, I'm fairly well read, and by no means, you know, by no means like a super intelligent cat, nothing like that. But I'm fairly well read, and so, you know, I have a wee bit of knowledge about everything, and so it's good. It's handy if you're going to be sort of, you know, I don't, for want of better terminology, a gobshite. You've got to have a little bit of nous to be able to fucking carry it off. You know what I mean, bro?
Yeah. Do you know, there was one moment, I mean, there were so many fucking funny moments when you was on stage, and there was one moment we was in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, at the Guitar Hotel, Hard Rock. The awards was happening. Sadly, we couldn't be outside because it was pissing down with rain. I mean, what was our chances? Right. Yeah, and anyway, I was standing there in the booth, and you were talking, just taking segments of just what you just said there to me. Is Miguel straight? Is he gay? You know, there's these question marks over him, and you come out with a gag where I don't know whether it was you being kind of creative on the spot or resourceful, but you said something along the lines of, yeah, I just done my first penis reduction, and now I've just done my second, and my wife, she's really happy, but my boyfriend is really pissed off. And then you kind of talk to someone in the crowd, and mate, I don't know whether it was just because of the timing of it or what, but the way you delivered it was so funny. So on that note, I mean, how did you come up with these gags, and what is kind of the best gags that you got there, Michael?
Oh, Steve, I mean, it's never. I don't. You know what? I don't prepare anything. That's maybe to my downfall in some ways. I don't know, but you know, when I started, I never wanted to work the circuit. I never wanted to work as a stand-up. To me, going up and down the country and all that for whatever, you know, 250, 300 quid, it never appealed to me. I always, you know, and I respect the stand-up community, and of course, there's, you know, some brilliant. But I always wanted to do. I wanted to do music, and to have an outfit, a band that was funny rather than a comedy band. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. To be an outfit that was entertaining, that was funny, rather to be a comic who did music. Do you know what I mean? Because music was my first love, and so I never really write anything. As far as material goes, but you know, so a lot of stuff is either, you know, improvised on the spot, or some stuff, you know, has been improvised and I've remembered it and used it again. And then, you know, because of, you know, being an entertainer, being a performer for such a long time, you take on a lot of stuff, and so it's that kind of thing, you know. But I've never been a guy to sort of write out, this is what I'm going to say here, and there's a certain formula that you have in a show, where I try and improvise as much, because that's where the fun lies for me, you know. That's where the fun lies, you know, for me. Is hopefully, if I'm having fun, that was the way I've always looked at it, then it's going to come across to the audience, and that's going to be an extra vibe, you know, because, you know, I've seen a lot of people, a lot of performers who are just going through the motions, and I can relate to it, because after, you know, you've done what I've done, you know, whatever it is, fucking 10,000 shows over the years, I can relate to it, but I never want to be that guy. And, you know, and of course, there's been sometimes when I've not been very well. I might have been ill, or I might have been extraordinarily fucking hungover, whatever you want to call it, yeah? Where you're like that, please, God, just get me fucking through the next hour. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And sort of, and do you know what I mean? And so I can relate to it 100%. But I also think that, you know, that's why, you know, I've never performed, you know, certainly never, you know, I certainly never performed high. I like, you know, as you could probably tell by looking at me, so I like a kick of the ball. I like a laugh, and I like a kick of the ball. I like a bit of nefarious, but I never do it when I'm going to be on stage, because to me, there's the disconnect, you know, and a lot of people aren't like that. A lot of people find that, you know, a bit of confidence, or a bit of whatever they want to call it, a bit of je ne sais quoi is within that. But for me, I like to do the show with a couple of drinks, and then, you know, whatever happens after is what happens after. But yeah, for me, that's the thing. So, and sorry, it's a long roundabout answer, Steve. The one thing you'll get with an interview with me is I will never give you a one-sentence answer, for fuck's sake. And yeah, the answer is it just, sometimes it's divine, you know. Sometimes you know, you grab something, and when you're in the flow, you know, you've talked about it yourself, about being in the flow. Then it's almost like, if you're in tune, then you're going to be comical regardless, yeah? And then sometimes it's stuff that has been said in another show, or I've remembered, and something, and it's appropriate to be used at that time. But that's how it is. I never write anything. It's not like a stand-up thing. It's not, I would never refer to notes. But also, after all this time, yeah, and I just say all this time, it's quite a long time, you know, to have been doing what I do, then, you know, I've got, you know, quite a bit of material under my belt, and so I can sort of draw on quite a wide, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Look, I mean, the Cuban Brothers, you got Yo Bonita, an album, A to Z. You do a lot of gigs, a lot of festivals. You just mentioned before we started, You're going to be traveling to Italy. I mean, you've traveled so many places around the world. It just seems like you're on the go all the time. And as I mentioned, you know, you're the funny guy, you're the MC. But over 25 years, like everybody in business, anyone in show business, anyone pursuing a career, there's the ups and downs. There must have been times where shit is going kind of wrong. And I'm quite interested to know, what was that and how did you get over it?
Sheesh. That's a good question, man. It's a good question. Well, yeah, Steve, I mean, to be honest, we have not had a lot of things go wrong. I mean, I feel really lucky as far as that goes. We've not, you know, I've always tried to conduct myself as a gentleman. And I think that, you know, I've always encouraged it in my bandmates and sort of, you know, the guys that I work with. And I've always encouraged that thing of, you know, having a bit of emotional intelligence, you know. And so, because basically, if you're there to do a job, man, you're sort of there to. My thing is to be a fucking gentleman, get in, give people a good time, and have a laugh, and then, you know, drop your shoulder. Or if you're hang on and have some fun as well. We haven't had. I think maybe the worst thing might have been the bloody pandemic, and so you know that was absolutely brutal, and you know, to be told that, you know, that we weren't, you know, we weren't valid, or that you know, to try and get a new job outside of the arts, and that I wasn't going to be given any money and stuff like that. So what I'm not going to do is go into a tirade because I was super angry about it. But yeah, I thought that was dealt with really badly. Yeah, I pay taxes, as do, you know, and I've been legit for a long time. I didn't need to be legit, you know. I've been legit, and I wasn't. I'll be honest with you, I wasn't legit initially. You know, fuck that. I mean, I had, you know, several trainer boxes under the bed and all that kind of shit. If the IRS is listening, get fucked, because I've paid you back. It's not even the IRS, is it? What do they call it? It's
Inland Revenue.
Inland Revenue. I can't even say their name. I'm that fucked off with them. But yeah, man, and so yeah, that was fairly brutal. That's where things going wrong. But I mean, you know, yeah, I mean, the professionality side of what I do, I've always thought that was important, you know. And so I haven't gotten myself, or we haven't got ourselves in any bother as far as that goes, you know. So when things go wrong, I mean, there's been minor things like, you know, I've been arrested many times in America and arrested a couple of times in other places, you know, for minor infractions of what some people would deem illegal
substances,
illegal contraband and illegal substances and all that kind of shit. And then, you know, and obviously on the Gumball, you know, so many fines for sort of not wrong driving, but sort of naked driving, and then actually, you know, naked surfing on various vehicles while someone else is driving. You know, and I got arrested with you know, Ryan Dunn from Jackass, rest in peace, really wicked guy, Ryan, and we both got lifted in Larry Flint's strip club, you know, in New Orleans in the Big Easy. We were up. Larry Flint strip club's got the longest dancing pole in the world, so it's like a big 45-foot dancing pole that goes up 50 foot, 45 foot, goes up 3 stories. And we were up there at sort of 5:30 in the morning, pissed as wizards, naked, me and Ryan up there. And obviously the girls, there was one girl above us and one below us. And we were in the middle there doing our shit. And they were having fun. We were having fun. But they obviously, the security didn't like that. And, you know, they went and got the state troopers, the Big Easy coppers came in. Because the security were trying to get us down. We like that. You know, how about this? How about fuck off? And we had a drink and a wee bit leery. And so then the copper, God bless him, he put his gloves on and climbed up the pole and pistol whipped me down.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I've still got, I mean, I can still see here. It was a beauty. You know, 10 stitches in my napper because he pistol whipped me down. Because we were naked when we came down. I'm covered in claret, chucked in the thing. That was Gumball 2009 or 2006, I don't know, one of them. But, you know, stupid stuff like that. But that's like, to me, that's part of the rich tapestry. but yeah, man, as far as things going wrong, I mean, I can honestly say that it's been good, man. As far that things going wrong was not being able to earn, being a family man, 3 children, not being able to earn, and then being told that, that we were sort of invalid, or, that we were kind of, that we should consider retraining and start, thinking about something else during the pandemic and during these lockdown times and everything. And I was, 100% against all that, and I was 100% against the Tory government and the way that they dealt with it, and the multitude of dishonesty and lies and all that kind of stuff. I was a bit of an angry man for some time, and so rather than just being depressed that not being able to work and not having an outlet, I was actually furious at the fact that they were being able to get away with it, and everybody was going for it. I was like, are you fucking mental? Because a lot of punters are like that, that was the thing to me. I was like, oh, really? Or they're getting 80% of their salary, so they'll keep stum. I'm like that. Listen, guys, you're mental if you think this is not going to come back. And here we are. So anyway, this is not a political thing, and I'm not. But as far as it goes, man, that's been the worst thing that's happened to me in my career, and it's only like effectively a year ago or 9 months ago. Apart from that, there hasn't been, I'm lucky there hasn't been many, many negative things. It hasn't all gone wrong. But I've made sure that I've worked at it, man. I've built and cemented relationships with promoters and with punters and with, people in the industry, and sort of worked at keeping those relationships, it's important to me, and it's important that for me, you're only as good as your reputation, and you might have heard it's a cliche, you're only as good as your last show. And, and it is a little bit of a cliche, but both of those things ring true. Yeah. And so, I would hate anyone to have a sort of, like a thing, I wouldn't, that to me doesn't compute. If anyone, I'm pretty sure, that maybe I might have had an altercation with somebody or whatever over my career, but I always want to go away from a show or from a situation as, as a nice guy, or someone who's tried to be the nice guy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
But also, that doesn't mean I'm a mug. And I have, and appropriate to talk about it, but of course I've reached out and touched, but it's 24 years. And during that time, there has been people try to mug me off. Of course there has. And, and me being from where I'm from and growing up where I grew up, it doesn't, I don't make threats. We just get on with it. But thankfully, it's been very few and far between.
I know this is going to sound cliche as well, but your net worth is determined by your network, and looking at the people that you're around, what you've achieved, etc., is fantastic. And doing some research on the internet, the likes of Elton John, Richard Branson, you've mentioned people, in the Gumball rally, Jackass, etc. I mean, some of these people that you've been rolling with or connected with, they're pretty high profile people, some powerful people. How does that make you feel, Mike?
I don't know. I don't know. I never really had my head turned by other people's fame or success. I guess I got a bit of you get a bit of a personal, you get a bit of a personal buzz getting to meet some of these, people who have been, who are luminaries in their field. You know what I mean? Who have been successful artists in what they do. But it never turned my head. It was never like, my whole thing was, if I was going to do put the same effort and the same show, at a wee sort of thing, for 15 postal workers as it would be for 15,000, or some of the bigger ones, 50,000 punters at a festival. It certainly was. It's certainly nice to be invited to do these things, on Necker Island, and to meet Richard and all that. We did a lot of stuff for Richard Branson. We did all this stuff for Virgin, his Virgin parties, for his Virgin staff at his place, and then doing parties out at Necker, and obviously with Elton as well. It's wicked. It's a lovely invite to get, and it's nice that that these people think, oh man, they think as much of you as I want you to come down and entertain me and my friends. And so, yeah, that's great. It's ace, but it's never, I would never value my worth on those types of shows. They happen, and that's great. And, and it's wonderful. And then, we do so many different types of show, from clubs to gigs in our own right in venues, to festivals, which has been, the past 15 years, summertime. That's the biggest sort of stuff we do. That's the biggest work is during that time between May and October, festivals. But we also do lots of private things as well. And so, yeah, it's nice. It's nice to meet people who are, it's nice to meet people who are famous and all that, but it's never been, it's never made me go like, oh, that's not how I found, I was. I'll tell you, to be honest though, Steve, it's been handy, because if you have that reputation of being an entertainer for somebody, who has that type of fame and has that type of respect, then it can give you, it can add a little bit of value to you, and that's definitely been the case. So as far as me going, I'd never, superstardom and that doesn't really turn my head, and it doesn't, but it certainly has helped me to have friends and, dare I say it, fans and these sort of places, you know what I mean?
Listen, I wanted to ask you actually at the start of this conversation that you were telling me surprisingly that you knew who Richard Hamilton was, and we are the key advisors to the Richard Hamilton market. I mean, I think if you typed in Richard Hamilton into the internet, our company will come up first, no doubt. So how come you know a little bit about Hamilton and the street art movement?
I'm a first generation b-boy, so I've been, I was a graph artist, not a particularly venerated one, but I've always been into street art, and so I was, a big fan of Basquiat, and of course, what's his name? Fucking Keith
Haring.
Keith Haring, sorry, Mike. David fucking Davidson. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Keith Haring and all that, and all the imagery. And so I just knew of Richard Hamilton of being, sort of during that same time in the 80s, being one of the proto sort of street artists, and the one who was, really sort of venerated as one of the greats. And so without him, as I think, without him, there's no Banksy. Without him, there's no, that he really sort of, was big in the movement of street art in that time, and it's in some ways that he hasn't actually got the same. I guess there's not as much respect for people, laymen, right? I mean, laymen, people who aren't involved in the art world, There isn't as much known about Richard as there is Keith, as there is Basquiat, and all that kind of stuff, because his sort of stuff is probably a little bit darker and a little bit more left field, isn't it? But from the people who I learned from, people who are more into their art, that this was, somebody that I should be looking at. And so, and if there was a chance of collecting this, I needed to get a couple of pieces if it's all possible. And so, yeah, it's great stuff. But I had no idea that you were representing his stuff, at all.
Yeah, a bit of story about me. I got approached in 2014 by a very large art dealer who used to be Richard Hamilton's former manager, dealer, and kind of agent. My background is raising money for investments, and he said, look, have you ever raised money for collectible investment grade art? I said, no, I've never done it, but I'm pretty sure I could do it. He said, I represent this guy known by the New York Times as the Godfather of street art. Have you heard of Banksy? I said, yeah, of course. He said, well, look, this guy is called Richard Hamilton. He's affiliated to Jean-Michel Basquiat, Keith Haring. That's his predecessors. There's a documentary coming out back in 2014. It's now out, called The Shadow Man on Amazon Prime, which is unbelievable. And he said, look, the reason why he hasn't got to the same heights as Jean-Michel Basquiat, Keith Haring is two reasons. One, he didn't conform with the art market. And two, he didn't die. And basically, he said to me, without trying to sound morbid, this guy has been addicted to drugs for 35 years. He's got cancer. He's got many other problems. He's a ticking time bomb. He's going to die. But the moment he dies, prices are going to tenfold. And true to his word, that's what happened. So we've just been trading his market ever since. And we've put on shows. We've done shows in Dubai, Mexico City, Spain, the world famous Sasha gallery. We've published books. We've done the most amount of content. We've done a documentary. I mean, we've really immersed ourselves in his market. Now we've got over 500 pieces under management. We're about to move into Banksy's former gallery in Sackville Street, where he used to be at a gallery called Laz Inc. And yeah, man, we are.
Banksy, I know Banksy well, so I know exactly where you are, and I know that's amazing, man. I mean, but you know, can I ask you, coming from a place of more of raising finance? Were you an art lover? Was it a completely new? When I say an art lover, were you appreciative of that kind of stuff, or was it a whole new game when you came into it?
My former business partner, I would say, was more art savvy than I was. Don't get me wrong, I liked art, and I was a bit of a passive, very small time collector.
Yeah,
I wasn't a serious art collector by any stretch, and I wasn't, on the weekends researching artists, but I consider myself as a salesperson. So you take away the podcast, you take away the business, you take away the gallery, you take away all this other stuff. The skill set that I think I possess is selling, yeah? And I think in order to be a good salesperson, if you've got a good narrative to go on, and if you've got a good product, and you've got a great backstory, and you've got this history, it allows you as a salesperson to convey a message in a certain way. And the moment that myself and Hamilton, the narrative, met, I was like, fuck me, this is my calling. And it was. And I've got to be honest, we've done really well as a brand. I've obviously learned along the way, since being in these markets since 2014, a lot of other stuff. I've now become a collector of not only Hamilton, but multiple different artists, including Banksy and Black the Rat and loads of other, cool artists, Ben Iron, etc.
Amazing, man. That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's gone really
Fantastic.
well, and we're about to step shit up. So yeah. And Gumball is giving us a platform to connect with people, to sell art, and to do some content and podcasts. It's been great. And do you know what? I know you couldn't make it to the studio today, but I would love it. Whenever you get this down moment, come over to the studio, because I think you'll be really impressed.
I'd love to. I'm going to make it. I will make it a priority before autumn comes round. But yeah, it's the busiest time of the year. But I'd love to, man. I'd love you to show me around, and then maybe see if we can knock out a fucking deal of some sort. Do you know what I mean, or something?
Lovely. If you haven't seen the show,
we'll try and work out something, mate. I mean, you know what I mean. It might have to be like I'll do a couple of performances for a piece. Well, I'm not too handy with the hires just now. But yeah, that's great, man. It's impressive. That's wicked, man. I really didn't know. And when first speaking to you that was your game, that you're working in the art field, is certainly as a dealer, as a representative. What a vibe! And so. And what part of London? I mean, look, I don't want to turn the tables on you, but where are you from? What part of London are you from?
So originally, I'm from South London. My dad's from East Dulwich. My mum's from Brixton. I was born in King's College Hospital, and I was residing in Tulse Hill. And then my mum and dad were very, very, very firm about me not growing up in that part of London. So they moved us out into Kent, on the outskirts of South London, so to places like Bromley, West Wickham, Hayes, Coney Hall. My mum and dad split up. My dad kind of moved back towards central London, and I was to and fro in between my mum's house and my dad's house. And then, thankfully, finding my way in life and having a few companies. Some of them at the start was really, really, just not a success. I thought I was a success at the start, but then it wasn't so successful. And then I found myself coming into the art market, and it's been a blessing really, mate. And been running my podcast now for 4 years, got a property company as well, and connected to a lot of people. So yeah, it's going good, man. It's going good.
Great, man. Wicked, man. More power to you. Power to you. And as I said at the start of the interview, I think it's down to it's down to positive bloody mindedness and in general, bonhomie. You know what I mean? Bonhomie, it's like it's good. It's important. If you want to, you get it. It's like that thing. If you want to be successful, you've got to communicate well, and do the business.
Definitely.
Listen, I've got to split.
I've got to ask you one more question.
Of course you can.
It's a very, very simple one, and you can do a very, very short answer.
No worries, man.
So, when I first started my first business, which was a sales company, I came up with a mantra that I wanted the sales guys and myself to live by. And it goes like this.
Okay.
Be happy, never content. Now, if I were to ask one of the members of the Cuban Brothers, Michael Keat, be happy, never content, what does that mean to you? Or what does it mean to Miguel?
Oh, my God. Sheesh. Well, Miguelito, I think if you're talking to Miguel, it's a different thing because Miguel, there is a certain type of contentedness that Miguel just has. This is the kind of thing. For Miguel, he's more mature guy, so he's made a lot of money and he's had a lot of different experiences previous. So, it's, the contentedness is coming with these things that have happened in his life already, big family, and, to be able to make some money and to do some great shows involving in the porno shows and involved in actual films as well. It's no problem for you. It's okay for me. And so, I've been able to, scratch all the itches and it's been no problem. So Miguelito is okay. It makes sense. This statement makes sense for Miguelito. But for Mike, again, excuse me doing the old thing, but I've got to do it if I'm doing a wee character thing. For me, I think it's 100% that, bruv. It's like you say, it's like some people would say, that you're going to make, you're handing yourself your own arse by never being content or being content in that sense. You can be happy and content. But I think you've hit the nail on the head. You can be happy but never content in the sense of you can be content, but it's not for me personally. I'm still striving because I'm I'm a family man. I love what I do. I still think even now after this time that I'm not that the show is I've got nothing to prove anymore as far as it goes, but to me, as far as I'm concerned, I still have, because I'm lucky to do this for a job and all that, but in my heart of hearts, and this might be giving too much away, I don't know, but I'm just being honest with you. In my heart of hearts, I believe that sort of, I could have there's still time, and there's still a thing for me to, to go fully global and to be, to be the artist or the presenter or the actor, who is well known everywhere and who's doing good work. To me, it's never been about fame, Steve. When I say that, to be well known, I mean that, not to be famous. I'm not interested in that kind of thing, but to be respected for good work.
Recognized, yeah.
Yeah, recognized, and sort of to be doing good stuff. I think that it maybe in some ways doing this, I do a lot of different characters, yeah. Some of them you won't be aware of, and I used to have a show on MTV, and I used to have a wee show. There's a show called Bridge and Allen. It's on the BBC just now. It's on BBC iPlayer, where I play a different character who's a thing. So I do all these different characters, and I think that maybe in some ways, the Cubans thing might have scuppered some chances previously, but in a certain way, it's hard to tell because in certain times, people want to. It's less and less now, to be honest with you. But back a wee while ago, people wanted to put you in a box. What are you? Are you a band? Are you a singer? Are you a comedian? Are you an actor? And they wanted to fucking box it off. And because I've always been an all-rounder, and in my mind, I'm probably one of the last of the all-rounders, somebody who could turn his hand and be comfortable in that sort of thing. And, a contemporary version of a showman who, and so that kind of thing. So I think I'm going around the houses now. What I was trying to say was that, yes, I'm happy and I'm very, and I count my blessings daily because I'm lucky. I'm happily married, which is amazing, for 15 years to a wonderful Australian woman. And I've got 3 daughters. I'm very happy with that. And work outside of the pandemic, we're back. It's on fire. I'm busy. I've got a wonderful outlet. But yes, I'm always striving for something more and something a bit, I'm always striving to professionally just to push the envelope. I don't want to sit treading water, man. That's the thing. Like, who wants to do that? Like, some people might. And I tell you what, if they do, then more power to them as well. I would never negate that as a dream. Like, some people are like, look, I've found my Valhalla and I'm happy here. I'm making a living and I've got a good life. That's fine. And I appreciate that. But yeah, the whole statement that you made, happy but not content, is exactly how I would describe myself. Because as soon as I am content, and I don't think it's a bad thing, but you're sort of looking at a thing where I want to keep moving and sort of grow as much as I can, personally, professionally, fucking financially. I'm not afraid to say it, bro. Of course. And so that's the thing, man. I think it's a great question, and I hope I've answered it in a roundabout way. You
definitely have. Right. Thank you very much for your time. I'm looking forward to seeing this back. Look out in your email tomorrow, because I'm going to send you an intro to Woodbury House, the Richard Hamilton stuff that we do. Watch the Shadow Man documentary. And remember, to be happy, never content. Keep on doing your thing. You're an absolute superstar. And I can't wait to connect with you again, bro.
Steve, it's been a pleasure. It's nice to talk to you. And I'll be honest, I've done lots, as you can imagine, lots of interviews. But it's nice to connect with somebody who's asking interesting questions and somebody who understands, a wee bit of the ins and outs of my type of dickheadery stroke artistry. It's wicked to speak to you, man. I'll see you soon, and we'll get a drink and a meal and a hookup soon, and I'll come and see you at the gallery, yeah?
Beautiful. Thank you. God bless. Enjoy your night. Bye-bye.
Same to you, brother.